And I'm gonna be high.
Good on you, Donald. I'm the Rocket Man, yeah.
I'm a rocket man. And I'm gonna be
Rocket Man.
I'm a rocket man.
All right, let's dig into it. Who are you and what are you doing in the industry? Introduce yourself to the folks.
Yeah, so I'm Danielle Spinelli. I've been in the industry for like 11 years now. I was a broker for 8 years. And then I was in carrier sales, but I did high value freight most of the time. I did postal work and then I did high value freight. So I did copper and electrical wires like my jam. And so I dealt with a lot of theft and had a carrier vet and, deal with all that stuff. So then that kind of became like passion because as soon as you get hit, you're like, I did all the things and and you keep having to evolve. And so I started working for my care portal, which was a carrier vetting and onboarding. And I was there for about 3 years. And since then, just switched over to Genlogs as their director of partnerships. But kind of my biggest focus, I guess, in the industry is educating as much as I can on cargo theft, how to prevent it, how to vet a carrier. Because I think that's so important, but then also not knowing how to properly vet means your capacity pool's less and you treat good carriers badly. And I'm not a fan of that as a carrier sales rep. Like
People
I
don't
like my
talk about that
voice.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, if you treat everybody as a bad guy, who are you going to cover it with? So
exactly. And I've been there, done that. I think capacity, tightening up a little bit right now. A lot of people are seeing that, they're just strictly yes and no, and they're missing a lot of good carriers. So knowing how to properly do it, and of course, it's ever evolving. And I actually just met with the FBI. I think it was last week, and so got to talk to them, educate them about cargo theft. And luckily, they actually knew a lot more than I thought they did. Like they know what's going on, so that's
yeah,
cool to
it's
know.
not a knowledge gap, it's an execution gap. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but they're close. Like they really are. They know what's happening. The cyber side of it, they know a lot more on the cyber side than I knew. So I learned a lot there. And it seems like the majority of everything really is cyber, other than like the straight theft, but a lot of it's cyber stuff that's happening. And it's
spoofing
so anyways,
and impersonating and hacking and all of that. So
yeah.
it's funny you brought up the FBI because my joke transition was going to be like, so you joined the CIA or AKA Genlogs,
Yeah,
which is what everybody says when they join the CIA. They just call it Genlogs. That's obviously Ryan,
exactly.
even in
Yeah.
his background. I always just make that joke. I'm like, oh, the CIA entered the freight market.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much.
and one of my clients, one of Rocket's customers, he had sold, I don't know if I should say too much actually, but somebody that I know
Yeah.
sold a piece of technology, the 360-degree camera technology in the phones, to
Yeah.
Apple, and then worked there for a while and then ended up being the CEO of another company later. We work with them. And in between, he worked for like a drone company that would like help roofing companies surveil,
Oh,
like,
interesting.
like survey. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, or the CIA,
Right.
one or the other, you could call it that. So that's my industry joke, is that Genlogs is the CIA.
I feel
But they're
like
doing a
that.
good job.
They are.
So let's start there. You just started there, or you've been there a while? I actually didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, I'm actually been there about a month or so, but I work directly with them with partnerships with the My Care portal piece. So I'm very familiar with them. So as soon as I started, I was like, actually, I feel like I've been here a long time because I know what I'm doing. This is weird. But
Well,
yeah,
you are
no,
the fraud girl in the industry. That's your
Mhm.
coined term, and people have
Yeah.
called you that. So, I mean, it makes sense that you're at Genlogs and My Carrier Portal as well.
Yeah. No, it's been really cool. I mean, we kind of talked about this before we came on, but just being able, like, I have enough people now, like a network wise, where people reach out to me like, hey, I had a theft. Can you help in any way? And
Yeah.
I work with now the FBI, but also California Highway Patrol are like my boys over there. And so a lot of times I'll connect and they make a lot of recoveries. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I have people reach out to me. So now I get to like even be more detective mode with Genlogs and like being able to look things up.
You got a pretty powerful tool now.
It's really cool. Yeah. Like nerding out how cool it is.
Their
Yeah.
April Fool's Day video, that was pretty awesome. I didn't realize it was even April Fool's until I saw the Fast and Furious part. I was like, oh, you got me.
Yeah.
So,
I
that's
love Ryan. He's so great. Yeah, we did he actually had me write because most of the people that I work with are either from CIA or they're from other like IT stuff. And everybody's so smart. Like I feel like I clearly was hired for personality and that was it. But everybody's super, super smart. So a lot of them were not in the logistics industry and didn't understand, I guess, the whole history of cargo theft. So Ryan was like, hey, write out like everything you know about cargo theft. I'm like, Okay, I did it, and it was like a huge long thing. But I referenced in the beginning, back in the day, it was Fast and Furious mode, where it was just someone hijacking a car and whatnot. So now it's a lot different.
I lost you there, but I'm pretty sure it kept going. So
Yeah, maybe,
you
but
just
I can repeat.
repeat from most
Yeah.
of the people you work with are in the CIA, and we'll just clip that because I
Okay.
lost my.
You're good. Yeah, most of the people that I work with are either from the CIA or they're like the data people. It's super, super smart. Like honestly, I was clearly hired for personality and that's it. But everyone's so smart here. And so with that, a lot of them were not in the industry. There's a decent amount that were, but not everybody. And so Ryan wrote me and he was like, "Hey, will you write like a piece for the whole team to be like, hey, this is all the history of cargo theft that you know?" I'm like,
Mhm.
done. So wrote that up, and so in the beginning, it was like, yeah, back in the day, it was Fast and Furious style, like they'd hijack a truck or steal it from a parking lot or whatever. So that was the majority of the things we dealt with, and now it's shifting a lot. So we kind of wish it was back like that. So
Well, let me go. Let me just pull that thread and just ask like some hard hitting example questions because you're the expert and Genlogs is
mhm.
also the expert. What are the most common examples of freight fraud for those of us who like I obviously experience it in the industry and I know a lot about it, but maybe from like someone's perspective that's like, oh yeah, freight fraud is just stealing loads. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's way more sophisticated. Let's start there. And then I'm going to bring up like I heard you say earlier mail freight and I might push you on that. We'll see.
Okay.
Because I know a lot about that and I think it'd be fun to talk about. But what are the most common examples and like how sophisticated is it getting?
Yeah. So basically, Scott Cornell will always be like, you should not just keep calling it fraud. It's cargo theft. It is cargo theft most of the time. There is some fraud that happens, like accounting side and things like that, but it's really at all angles of the industry. Like I was actually just talking with TIA the other day and mentioning kind of all the different spots to educate on. So there's the strategic theft is what we call it, which is where there's more fraud in there. So there's like the double brokering schemes, fictitious pickups, the fraudulent, load board postings or fraudulent, hacking into someone's email. And actually, the FBI taught me with the cyber side of it, of that they're actually having you, like, if you ever click on a link, let's say like you see a posting or something, you email them and they're like, hey, this is the information. You click on that link and then all of a sudden your screen goes black or nothing's opening on that link. Well, really it's downloading something on the background and then they're living in your computer, which is super crazy and scary. So there's a lot of that. That's really where they get in and pose as these people. But then there's a lot of like the buying the fake MCs. I mean, not buying fake. They're buying real MCs that look great, operating as them. But there's like fraudulent
Chameleon
accounting.
carriers.
Chameleon.
Yep.
Well, Chameleon carriers is technically where they are showing up as one carrier and then they're flipping it over as another one.
Oh, so you're saying it's gotten more sophisticated. They just buy the MC and then they are that carrier, but they're
Yeah.
really fraudulent actors.
Yes, yeah. So they'll buy, I mean, honestly, like I was hearing one story where they bought like over 400 MCs at a time. And then half of them they ran legitimately. They're doing kind of all the right things because they want the MC to still look good and all the vetting platforms and stuff like that. And then the other half of them, they just went to town and made their money back quickly.
They
And then
turn and burn
slowly
them.
trickled
Yeah.
in. Yeah. So, I mean, they've gotten way more sophisticated. I mean, even just like being a fake shipper, that's a thing. Being a fake broker agent and being hired as a broker agent, and you're really a bad actor. There's bad drivers, like fraudulent drivers that are coming in. I mean, it's all angles of our industry, and that's just talking about over the road. I mean, there's more happening
Yeah.
in even trade and compliance, and overseas and stuff like that too. So
Okay. So what should you work at Genlogs now? So whether you want to represent their brand or not on this question, you can choose. But what should an enterprise shipper be doing to avoid this? Like, what if did they just trust that the broker's hopefully doing the good job? I think that's most of the industry. But how do they take steps if you're an enterprise shipper to avoid a situation? Maybe a specific example is you book a load, and one of the things that I see fairly prevalent and it's pretty tricky is like, hey, send the rate confirmation, forward it to this email, and they forward
mhm.
the rate con to a different email. Now they've got an underlying carrier saying, yeah, I'll pay you this, and here's the rate con, and then the carrier who picks it up is not the carrier on the paperwork.
Right.
And then they hold it hostage, they send it to Fontana, California, and they ask you for money, and then they'll ship it back at above market rate. They
Well,
don't
most of
actually
the time they
steal the
don't ship it
freight, they
back,
just
but
take the money.
yeah. A lot of times now they don't even send it back though. Now they're just doing a hold load hostage and it's actually already at the port heading overseas. So that's what we're seeing right now. Yeah.
Even worse.
I know. So for shippers, the big thing with enterprise shippers is really knowing who your brokers are. If you're brokering out freight, or if you have carriers, who exactly you're working with, and how did they vet internally. So
Yeah.
understand that they understand what to do. That's kind of like number one before you even hire them, before you even send out RFP. Those should be conversations that you have. And part of those conversations as well with those guys is saying like, hey, this is the information that I need. I actually have a checklist built out that I can send you and you can post on there. But basically, like, driver information, right? Like who exactly is showing up at my door. And the biggest thing is making sure as a shipper that you're actually checking those things, because I can get that information all day long, but like you need to be out there looking. Is this actually who's showing up? I'm sorry. Hold on one second.
Yeah. As your camera falls. But you were
I
saying
know.
that you have a whole checklist. We'll share that when we release this, and I'll share it in the comments then, or I'll link it. But I just think it's crazy that we have companies like Genlogs and Highway, obviously on different ends of the spectrum, but doing the same thing. Genlogs, I think, is like once something's stolen, we'll help you recover it and try to find these carriers. Highway's like, we're going to help you not get it stolen. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I mean, I will say Genlogs, we're building out the carrier vetting piece because a lot of it is kind of like I was mentioning earlier, where like a good carrier will have red flags and then you quit using them. So
Oh, yeah.
it's Genlogs is trying to make a different approach at that. So still carrier vetting, but making it where like you're getting actual data that's like not just a digital footprint, but on top of that, a physical footprint. So that's kind of what Genlogs is moving towards. So
Yeah,
like
that
if
doesn't really exist today at all,
no,
does it?
and there's not
Like,
a
I
really
mean,
way to unless if you have
I'm
cameras everywhere.
uneducated on this, so I try not to. Oh, I do all the time. My wife tells me I say things, I talk about things I don't know, but I try not to. But like, and I won't name names because I don't want to make anybody mad, but like a freight guard could just be subjective. It could
Totally.
just be somebody's pissed off because they didn't pay the detention and they file a freight guard on a broker or a carrier. Or,
Hmm.
hey, they got burned because they were late. So they file a freight guard. And that's kind of like been, hey, we look at freight guards, we look at this, we vet to make sure that the phone number and the email on the site, I won't name any names,
Hmm.
on the site that you would check for that matches who you're talking to. And then you make sure that, I can't believe people don't even do this all the time, is like, hey, did the carrier who picked it up, was that the same DOT and MC number that was on the paperwork? And
Yeah.
did they show their driver's license to pick up? But that's about as much vetting as has happened. Unless I'm
Hmm.
wrong, I could be totally off on this, but I'm pretty sure that like maybe there's more sophistication, but I don't think there's any like, hey, besides what people have reported, what else is going on with this carrier? And what you're talking about is like you could have a carrier that had red flags that isn't a bad carrier.
Right.
And you could have a carrier who has 400 MCs that doesn't have red flags that is a fraudulent actor. So how you just hope it doesn't go poorly.
Totally.
Buy more
So
insurance.
yeah, and I feel like the digital footprint of things is super important. Like, and that's why we have had success with vetting carriers and things like that, are with the platforms that are out there. So I think Genlog's approach by having that physical footprint of like seeing the cameras everywhere, but then also taking in that digital stuff as well. Like it needs to coexist together.
Yeah.
Because let's just even say like, and this is also like outside of even cargo theft. Like even if you had like a shipment and then like a van shows up for a reefer load, like I've had that happen, or a flatbed, or a
Right.
lift gate, or you know what I mean, like all these different things that you're like, I didn't order. That's not what I ordered. And so that type of stuff too. I mean, just everyday things that happen in freight, I think also are not really. We kind of not look at all those things and we're like wishing for the best, but actually
Yeah.
being able to know who you're working with.
Bend it and send it. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Genlogs approach, having that network everywhere, is also saying like, hey, these guys are actually operating. And then if somebody's like taking their name, and because that happens too, where they just are, hey, this is a good carrier, I'm going to pretend I'm them and I have nothing to do with them. Well, if we're seeing them only like in Georgia, Florida, and then all of a sudden they're trying to pick up a load in California, well, then like our customers can say like, hey, this doesn't make sense. And Genlogs hasn't even seen them drive across the country. So how are they in California now? Like this doesn't even make sense. So it's a lot of
Fair.
that too.
And how would, now this isn't just like a plug for Genlogs, although I think it's really cool, but how does that work? Like Genlogs is doing something pretty different in the industry. Like they're they and this is me not knowing much about it. What I think they're doing is they're taking, like, they have access to traffic cameras and all of these way station cameras and such, and they have access to all that metadata? Or how are they getting
Nope.
pictures of people's plates? What's going on?
So
This is
they
what the
actually,
layman thinks of the industry. Like, how do you get all the pictures?
I know. So we actually have our own network of cameras and sensors all throughout the U.S. So it's completely privately
How?
owned.
How do
Just
they do that?
honestly, we have a whole like team where they go out and drive and put things out. So a lot of them were leasing land from like homeowners, or not, I guess homeowners, but landowners are around
Okay.
interstates and things like that. But even like the thought process it takes for us to put a camera somewhere is like it has to have good internet signal. It has to be where, like trucks are normally at, and we can have lots of activity there. So we're not quite yet like into like inner cities. A lot of it's just major roadways.
Highway. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely I can see us eventually getting to that point. But the biggest thing is like knowing that we have these cameras. It is our own. It's not, because even like what's interesting is like whenever I work with California Highway Patrol, they can't even access some of their cameras unless if they know a driver was in this area and this is what they're getting. And sometimes they
How
even need
would
a
they
subpoena.
know unless they check the? Yeah, I get that. It's chicken and
Exactly.
egg every time.
Exactly. So they have a really hard time finding these guys because it is all, government owned and stuff like that. So this is kind of our way. And even with, helping them out find freight, it's kind of like our way of even helping them to know like, hey, this is the area that we last saw them. Go find other footage, maybe between their cameras, and they can get more granular into, inner city stuff. But that's where really they've had a lot of success. So it's been really cool being able to work with them and like have an impact. So, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm understanding now after hearing that is like, hey, you have this network of cameras and other aspects of it, and what the common person is like, oh, once a load is stolen, I can try to find this carrier. But you're saying, and it makes sense to me, if you have all that info and a carrier who has 12 trucks and is domiciled out of Georgia, and their trucks that they have are registered, and you have all of the information about them, and then somebody is impersonating them and they're in California, you're like, well, the odds that they're in California when all their trucks are over here
Yeah.
and this is where they run, and we see their traffic pattern, and suddenly there's one of them that doesn't match, but it says their name on the truck. Now there's a chameleon carrier, and
Right.
you can use it for vetting in a different way than most platforms.
Yeah, and like I said, we're getting to the point with that digital front footprint too, which is what the rest of the vetting platforms are doing. And so it's kind of being able to see all the different information, because a lot of times the vetting platforms, like they've done a great job this whole time at preventing a lot of areas, but that's why these guys are getting smarter and smarter, because they don't have boots on the
Yeah.
ground seeing everything, and shippers don't check everything they're supposed to be checking and stuff like that. So
Or if the
how
shipper
do
like have an employee that's in on it at the dock and it's
yeah,
100 dock doors, and how are you going to stop that?
how would you even know really to track it down to that one dock worker who's moving around and who knows what they're doing, right? It's
Yep.
very difficult for even a shipper to know that part. And so yeah, this is kind of the best way of that piece. But the areas that we're really lacking in is like the chameleon carriers, like you were talking about, or like whenever an MC is sold and they go dormant for a while, they keep it alive and they keep it looking great and all the things. But if we're seeing like, hey, these guys haven't driven in a month, that's weird. Normally drivers
Yeah.
are still driving. Like they went from we saw them every week, once a week, to we never see them. Something's changed, something's different, and so that should be a red flag, at least to vet further. And that's why education on how to vet and stuff like that is such a passion, because even at that point, it could be where yeah, the guy had his wife sick and he stayed at home for a month. Like who knows. So that's kind of where you want to have some digital and physical to kind of align together.
Okay. Pop quiz. You don't have to answer this. We can just cut it out if it's a terrible question. But would Genlogs then be able to, if they have all this data on how the carriers move and where they're at, and would an enterprise shipper at any point be able to be like, hey, I need to find carriers that run between Chicago and Dallas, or run between these two zip code pairings? Would Genlogs be able to
Yeah.
procure that for a shipper to say, hey, I need to source carriers? And then it's like, we know which carriers run these lanes and we can introduce you to them. Is that a capacity platform play?
Yeah, so we do. So we have basically three products. One is carrier vetting. Two is, which is also like our asset locator if you lose something.
Yeah.
And then two is our capacity carrier finding. And then we have shipper intelligence too. Our capacity part, we call it carrier intelligence. But yeah,
Okay.
brokers, shippers, basically being able to find those carriers. Because a lot of times, like if you depend on like, let's say a load board and they're posting from
Yeah,
here to
you
there.
post it, you cover it off the spot, and then you're like, hey, how often do you run this lane? And then you
Yeah.
try to contract it off a spot. That's the playbook.
Right, exactly. So this is taking a different approach where the ones who are just running contracts all the time and they're great carriers, a lot of times they're a little bit cheaper than other people because they're not on load boards seeing what the
Yeah.
rates are. You can reach out to them and be like, hey, I see you always run from here to here. Do you have enough, lanes to take care of you? Or can I help you out with this? Or maybe you can offer a better, rate or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's being able to build on that. And as a former carrier sales rep, like whenever I saw that piece, I was like, this is so freaking cool. Are you kidding? Being able to like really talk to somebody and say like, hey, I see you go to all these places. It's kind of creepy saying like, I see you go everywhere, but also on the carrier side, they're like, oh,
See
cool.
you
I
all
can
the
see this.
time.
I see you everywhere. But I mean, they know we're around too. And then the shipper intelligence side, which is really cool too, is we can kind of see, this shipper is running these type of lanes, or when they get loaded here, we're seeing where they're going. And so shipper intelligence wise, if you have like one thing that I thought was really cool is I looked up my old shipper that was like my number one guy, and I saw the lanes that they were running within gem logs, and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I would have known that they had this lane and this lane. I could have, asked a bit on this or asked a bit on that. So it can
Yeah.
really grow your business with having all the different, modules or services that we have.
That is pretty interesting. I didn't even know that, but it just made sense. And I was like, wow,
Yeah,
that's what a broker carrier sales rep would want. And then
right.
an enterprise shipper would want access to that same data probably at some point at scale. Like, hey, I'm sick of only using brokers. I'd like to be able to source carriers. There just isn't really I mean, Emerge is doing a pretty good job of that, but there's not a
Yeah,
whole lot of players that just connect shippers to carriers. And even Emerge is still brokering it. They do
yeah,
call it a marketplace. They do it differently, but still not a direct relationship. It's just a bunch of 2PL relationships. And then if you think about it, I always talk about this theme in the industry, like AI. Obviously, Genlogs has quite a bit of capabilities with AI. And the more data, the more AI that can be used. But it's kind of democratizing for mid-market brokers to be able to find carrier relationships, I guess, more competitively in that equation. No, I was saying that like Genlogs obviously has a lot of capabilities in AI, and they can use AI because there's so much data and so
hmm
much imagery and so much, metadata. Really, AI is perfect for that. But when you talk about shipper intelligence, I feel like what I think of is immediately this, like only the biggest brokers could build networks and carry relationships and have their like internal tools. That's like, we know where carriers are running and now they're like dedicated to us. This seems to be democratizing that access to mid-market brokers. Like, hey, now we can kind of tell we work with Nestle or whatever ABC enterprise
yeah.
shipper, and we don't know what lanes they run. We don't always have the best sales relationship. We're doing good on our lanes, but we have assets over here and we can't sell it to
Right.
them. This kind of unlocks that.
Yeah, totally. Like if you're at the point in your brokerage where you're kind of like, I'm here, but I don't know how to get to this next level. And, everybody talks about like, let's say like the $100 million mark, right? Like usually you hit like 60 and then you're stagnant to get to that 100. So how do you get there? And it's tools like this where you can actually like take your current relationships and take them to the next level
Yeah.
that help you unlock it. And then from there, you'll, keep building out your sales team and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as strategy wise to get up to that part, I swear I'm
Yeah.
not even, I think that's just my camera moving.
Yeah. It was just following you.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me go back to, you said that you worked at a brokerage back in the day,
hmm
carrier sales, and you were doing high value freight, copper and steel, maybe. And you
Electrical
said
wire, but
mail
yeah.
freight. You said
Yeah.
mail freight.
Yep.
And we won't say the name of the company, but we all know what mail freight is. That can be like 3 companies, but one of them is pretty prevalent.
Yeah. It was a big one.
Yeah. And they only use brokers. And there's always headlines about this company and brokering freight. So is Genlogs, or are you personally wanting to give an opinion on like non-domiciled CDLs and how that's affecting people? Like I think of mail freight because I used to run mail freight, and that was
hmm
not a lot of domiciled CDLs were running it.
No.
There's a lot of I'll call them chameleon carriers, or just kind of burning through MCs, and then
Yep.
overseas dispatching. That's still very prevalent. Side note, they just made a deal with Amazon today or yesterday,
Oh,
where
really?
Amazon is going to be delivering all of the USPS parcel. Like 90% of the packages will be delivered through Amazon instead of on theirs.
Interesting.
It's like a mega deal. It just got announced. But
Wow.
that's just the final mile delivery. So there's still going to be a middle mile network, which is
Yeah.
mail freight. I'll just leave it open ended on that. You can take whatever angle you want, but like, what is Genlogs doing, or what do you know about like the non-domiciled CDL, Secretary Duffy, all of that going on? That's causing everybody. Well, not everybody. A lot of people are speculating that's causing the supply crunch, even though there isn't a huge demand, curve.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
So I guess it's more my personal opinion. I know
Yeah.
Genlogs has it where like if they got an inspection and they had like a red flag, it pulls up as a red flag. I personally don't feel like every single non-domicile carrier out there, or driver out there, is a bad guy. I mean, I think that's like super generalized, and the percentage is probably pretty low. I think, I mean, who knows? All I'll say is they've been saying that, and we've been, finding these guys, and that's still going up. So I don't necessarily think that they're all the bad guys. I do think there's a way to do business and conduct business in the US. And we've, all of us are in logistics. We know this. We kind of roll the dice a lot. We're like, well, I need this thing covered at whatever rate, right? So we do a lot
Especially
we kind of
the
look
mail
at the
freight
other
world,
eye.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's a bid board. You get a rate, and then you have to go cover it under that rate, and you got to cover it time sensitive, team driver.
Right.
No, never get omitted. I don't even know if I'll get in trouble for saying these things, but anyways.
No, I was just gonna say the team driver. Like I was around whenever I did postal freight whenever ELDs got mandated, and it went from these guys like kamikazes going across the whole US, and you're like, how are these guys driving? But they made it, and you're like, okay. And then
surgery was the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And so whenever they did ELDs, and then you had to like have more, you could see everything, right? Like that made a big difference. You had to have a team, whether or not things were teams or whatever, that's like a whole nother debate. And I'm hoping even helping like Genlogs can be able to see, they're running like this, and you can get indicators like, hey, I didn't even book a team, but these guys are over. There's a lot of things that we can do on Genlogs in the future. I'm speculating and hoping. I don't know all the things. I'm just kind of going out there.
One
but
of the biggest problems at mail freight was that it has to be teams, and then these carriers, because they're only brokers and then underlying carriers, they were never underlying carriers contracted directly with the postal freight for specific reasons. But it was a big thing, and I used to run it for a long time, long enough that I know I've seen it all. And you get the email that's like, hey, this carrier can't be used anymore because they had a team driver check in on one day, and then the next day, the same driver from that team checked in again at pickup, but they could not be back because it was delivering across the country. And so that goes on. I'm imagining Genlogs would be able to provide some support on that, or some product like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably someday in the future, and this is just me speculating. Like I don't know all the data stuff on what we got going on, but I mean, to me, we can see like this is the drivers that are assigned to this, and this is where they are, and it doesn't make sense that they're here. Or like the whole scheme of like, yeah, I'm picking up my co-driver on the way. He's at his girlfriend's house, or he's at the truck stop showering.
He's at the truck stop. He's taking a shower. I just gotta go get it.
Right, exactly. I'll pick him up later, and that whole thing. So. No, I think the team vetting piece of things that I can't believe we haven't done that as an industry. There's got to be a way to do that better. But that has been always a struggle, I think, for everybody in the industry, but especially with postal freight. Like, and then oh my gosh, like just the horrors of mail freight, we'll say, but on mail freight, it was like the middle of the night, somebody would fall off, and you had to just call. I mean, they had to pick up, could not pick up at 4 a.m.
That was my job for a while, because I got into
God.
a situation where it was suddenly me running that, and I was on phone calls with you're going to get omitted. And I'm like, it's 2 a.m.
I know. Exactly.
My wife was like, who are you talking to at 2 a.m. in the bathroom? I'm like, mail freight.
It's like that commercial. It's Steve from State Farm or whatever it is.
It's just Jake from State Farm, I promise. And she's like,
Jake,
it's every night. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I got to find a carrier. But like, it's interesting, and this is a microcosm. Like, mail freight is a big spend, and there's 40 to 100 brokers at any given point working with them, so you run into people. But there's FedEx and UPS are running similar gambits and games of like, hey, it's very time sensitive truckload. It's not really truckload, but it is the whole truck that you're buying,
right?
And like everything gets gamed. Like suddenly the carriers who want access but have to go through brokers, the drivers are just waiting outside the facilities for someone to be like, hey, I need you to recover a load. And they're like, we're here.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. And then I started to realize, oh, this happens a lot. You're just waiting and you're like, I got a load going to Kansas City, whatever it might be. But that's the reason I brought it up is one, you had said mail freight. And then I was like, oh, there's some
Yeah.
like freight fraud, double brokering, non-domiciled CDL. If you just wanted to talk about all of it at once, you look at that network. It's like, yeah, they have to. And
Yeah.
to the mail freight's credit, like they have to be like, okay, all the drivers have to be proficient in English and all of these things so that they're putting things in place to hopefully avoid some of the other things.
Yeah.
But you talked
They
about
are doing some
non-domiciled
things, but
CDLs, and I think I have a somewhat well-formed opinion on this. Obviously, I'm on FreightX. You know, I like to watch all the drama. And non-domiciled CDLs becomes like a political thing and like an immigration thing, but it's really just an American thing.
yeah.
The reason that I think people have a problem with non-domiciled CDLs is they're like, oh, it's foreigners. And I'm like, no, they might be better truck drivers sometimes, maybe a lot of times. They
Yeah.
might take their job very seriously. This is their way to make it in America. The driver school farming things where it's like, hey, we're going to issue CDLs without you actually being able to drive a semi in California and others like that. I'm super happy it's getting shut down.
Right. Me too.
And like, that's the CDL mills. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you don't have a real qualification to drive a semi, that's not safe. But I think that, and I was on, I recorded an episode with Shannon Bream from,
Freight Bana.
Freight Bana.
Yeah.
Is his name Shannon Bream? Because
Yeah.
isn't that like a Fox News anchor gal? Shannon
I
Bream?
think he is also that in disguise.
Yeah. But
I
I
love
just
Shannon, by the
recorded
way.
with him last week, and we were talking about like how non-domiciled CDLs, if that causes supply constraint, that's one thing. But then if like inflation kind of runs off with the war and all the other things, and then like the industry starts to heat up,
Yeah.
and then we reshore, and then like, oh, it's like, oh, actually, we need to bring costs back down. We know where we're going to go.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
going to go to, hey, actually, we need to do this for less. And that's actually non-domiciled CDL the way it was intended is like, hey, this is your path to immigrating here and doing good work and like being the American dream.
Right. No,
And
I
so
definitely agree with
narrative
that. The
got
CD
kind of stolen there.
For sure. The CDL mills, honestly, is the majority of the problem. And the English proficiency stuff, I agree. Like, I think if you can't read a sign, like, we got a big problem. Or even if you can't read your bill of lading, like, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
You should be able to see what's going on and know what's on your truck. And so that's definitely it. But even non-domicile is technically, even if you live here, but you get a CDL in a different state, maybe that's where like you're headquartered at, that's considered even non-domicile.
It gets lumped
Those
together,
are
which is the
Americans.
industry's issue is there's freight just amazes me, or truckload freight really. And it's like so non-sophisticated, even though it could be. It just
Right.
lags behind by so much. That's why I like Genlogs and Highway and all that other stuff. I think it's cool for the industry. And DAT and what they're doing. And, you know, I don't take sides, but Sonar's cool, DAT's cool, all of that. Now I'm going to pivot. Like it's going to seem like a 180, but
Okay.
you also run a podcast. Tell me everything about it.
Yes, it's called Tell Me Everything. Yes, so my podcast, I started last June, so it's been like a really fun adventure. As you know, I'm sure with podcasting, it's like I did not realize how much work was in it, but it's super fun to do and being able to meet a lot of great people. I had Shannon on mine as well. So I have two pieces of it. Every Tuesdays, Tell Me Everything, and that's more of like meeting with industry leaders, talking shop. Like because I was a broker, I can kind of do all those things. But also, I use that as like a way for me to learn about logistics and things I don't know about, like warehousing and air cargo, and ocean freight and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that, so this is kind of my way to learn. And then every Friday is my Fraud Girl Friday, where I kind of am the expert in there. I know all the things, or at least I bring people on that know things that make me sound smart. And so the biggest thing,
that's why you're here.
Exactly. And so the Frog Girl piece, so I guess, is probably my biggest passion piece on it, because I'm big on like, if you don't know what you don't know, and if you don't know what's going on in the industry and like what others are seeing, you're just in your little globe, you won't know, you'll be able to get attacked because you don't know what's going on out there. So kind of the way of doing it without having to go to all the conferences and attend all the things, because most people can't do all that. So
yeah, and also it's mostly a waste of money and time to go to conferences, in my opinion. But if you're
it's a good party.
in a role where like if your brand is growing in a way that like brand awareness helps, then that makes sense. But I think that like most of the industry, like freight brokers, it's a bunch of empty promises. They're like, hey, I'm going to go to Manifest. I'm going to get so many shippers and they're
Yeah.
all going to like come there to talk to a freight broker. And then I'm going to bring them back and they're going to contract with us. That doesn't happen.
It does
Um,
happen, but it is rare. It does happen,
yeah.
but it is rare. You have to be like a really great salesperson to kind of make an impact,
Yeah.
especially there.
And then it's like, well, if I'm that great of a salesperson, I probably could have found a better way to meet with that same person outside of a conference. But I'm always been a
True.
skeptic. To be fair, I've gone to Manifest 4 times and I go to Home Delivery World and I go to conferences. I just don't go to get customers. I go to network with our carriers or whatever it may be because I'm like, hey, I
Yeah.
can justify that. Sometimes I go just because I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. There are
'Cause
there are
it's
lots of
good to see
fun.
industry people and network as well.
Yeah, I like going even outside of being in tech. I like going just to even learn about the different techs out there because you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now, like all the AI stuff coming out there. There's like a bajillion of them. So like, I would wait a little while, but and see who's left. But for the AI pieces, it's like who would have known that you can automate so many things, or like talking about the capacity piece too, like having your capacity piece being read by, let's say, gen logs, but then having it be reached out on a mass level by AI company. So it's interesting what's all out there, and so and you wouldn't know unless you go to conferences. So
True.
yeah.
Now my last topic for you, and it's about AI. But everything I talk about on this podcast, anyways, I always try to talk about AI this season 2, because
Yeah.
I think it's actually like I think that the AI labs already have AGI, and that they're trying to figure out how do we release this to the general public without it being an uproar. I think they probably already built it.
Yeah,
I'm a skeptic of that though. I'm like, they have more than we know.
for
And if
sure.
you look at like Claude or Anthropic and like all the things that are happening there, it's like getting so powerful so fast. I normally talk about it as like, hey, there's a lot, you just talked about it. There's a lot of AI companies in freight that are automating a lot of things. And you actually kind of made the comment that I always say, which is like, we'll see who survives that, because AI
Yeah.
is going to be available to everybody. It's going to be a few players that brought it to the brokers done for you instead of do it yourself. But really, everybody can do it
Yeah.
in the very near future. I'm going to take a different angle. In relation to Fraud Girl, Freight Fraud, what do you guys think of AI in the fact that like AI will make it easier for bad actors to do bad things
Oh, for
at
sure.
scale? It's
They
like, oh,
already
hack
are.
the email.
Yeah.
No
They
problem.
Yeah, they definitely already are. I mean, think about even manipulating BOLs. Like before, we would do like a Adobe PDF,
Yeah,
changing this and that. Now you just are like, hey, make this say this instead of this, and it's bloop, it's done.
it's
So yeah,
easy.
it's easy. It would be very easy for a bad guy to do things. Now, I think on the same front, as long as I think as long as the industry and vetting companies think of it in that same way, we're like, hey, what can I do to enhance it? I I'm excited for the day whenever there's like an AI agent that's like the compliance manager who's like, normally you would
Somebody
have to
should build
go.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody should build that. And so basically having it where like, instead of having to go to Mary who knows all the compliance pieces, I have that tool in my bucket. So especially as a small broker or whatever, I can actually, instead of having to hire somebody, I can make it where I get those red flags. What do I do from here? What's my next step? And then not only that, but having like AI be able to read the whole internet and see like, okay, what is everybody posting about this? What's on Reddit? Like there's a lot of things
Yeah.
on Reddit that people don't. That's not put on vetting platforms, but
Yeah.
people go on there all
Although
day
AI
long.
is not allowed to automate on Reddit, just so we're like, I think it's stupid, but
Oh,
you can't like
I
use
didn't
an
know
AI
that.
agent on Reddit. They shut it down. Like you can't read
Interesting.
the threads. It's like encrypted. It's a big thing. There's
I didn't know
LinkedIn and
that.
Reddit. You can't use an AI bot to crawl, which is like, wow,
Interesting.
that's a lot of the information that people want to know. Please just allow
Totally.
it. I'll pay for it. But you're
Yeah.
right. There is a paradigm of, or like a parody of like, okay, as long as we build AI on the vetting side, then we can beat the AI on the fraud side. And that's true. But I'll be honest, anytime I hear the word AI in supply chain, it's about automating load building and carrier voice agents and
Yeah.
automating the broker's side, because that is where the paying clients will pay the AI labs to build things for them. It's more of a, hey, it's almost altruistic to build it for vetting, because it's like, let's fix an industry problem, but no one's paying you to do it. And so
Yeah.
then it just takes, hey, someone's got to go do it. I I fear it will be way easier for the bad actors to use AI than it will be like, hey, the industry's going to adopt AI really
Yeah.
quickly. Which, if you think about logistics, we're still on EDI. So
So, and
API's
I
been
was,
around long enough.
yeah, and I was gonna say, so with like, let's say like the carrier sales piece, like I was in carrier sales, that's near and dear to my heart. So whenever there's like an AI agent that does that for you, I mean, my thing is you can't, and speaking from carrier betting, especially this is a high value freight, like you should not have that be AI. My personal opinion, and my AI friends who are out there are going to hate me for saying this, but you don't hear all the little pieces of like, oh, this guy sounds weird, or that, or, whatever, like they answer question too quickly or too slowly or whatever. There's just little pieces that you hear. Now, I think what I like with AI is whenever you're filtering, like let's say you post a load and your phones are blowing up and you're like on two
Yeah.
phones, right? Making it where like, hey, let's filter through some of those calls so that way I'm only listening and talking to the ones that I can actually book. So I think if we use the tools in a right way where we're not replacing humans and we're just enhancing jobs, I think that will make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of places that humans should be completely replaced. I don't know if I agree with carrier sales being replaced. I didn't do
Yeah.
carrier sales, but I know enough about it where I'm like, okay. I mean, I have done carrier sales. So I was just talking about mail freight, but it wasn't my role.
Right.
So I know how to do it, but I do think there's nuances. I
Yeah,
would
totally.
probably bet that at scale, if there was a company or companies that created an AI experience where you could be like, can I use this carrier? And then it would tell you everything about it, and it would access gen logs and highway and all the stuff and be like, yes, but, or
Yeah.
no, and here's why, instead of the static no or
Right.
green or red, which is what we have today. And you talked about it, that's kind of bookending the episode, which is just because a carrier has red flags doesn't mean they're not a good carrier. It could be
Right.
a litany of reasons. And just because a carrier says green in your vetting website does not mean that you're not going to have your load stolen, or there won't be double brokering, or there
Yeah.
won't be some fraud. So I guess at the end of the day, either AI runs everything or runs nothing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
No,
it
I
is
think
going to be
it.
interesting to see how that plays out in carrier sales. That's where they first went. And I don't
Mhm.
know if that was, I mean, I guess I don't have a voice in this. I don't care, but I'm like, was
I
that
know
where to start? Automate that
it is
part?
near and dear. Yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. And so for that, like I just remember. So I was a broker, prior to 2020, prior to just being able to post and to your email and cover it. Like I had to work the phones and I had to do all those things. So I remember begging somebody in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. like begging this driver to take this load. Like I will do anything. My kid is screaming, please help me.
Yeah.
And that an AI can't do that. So I think here's what I think is like, long story short, basically, if we don't have people still doing it, even in the easy times, they're not trained up for whenever it is a hard time. And you need to be preparing your staff that you do have that are in carrier sales to prepare for those hard times and tight markets. So that way
Which
they
is
already have a
about to
network and
happen potentially. It may be
potentially.
the hard time. And even though it's a different type of constraint, which is more of like a supply, and I anticipate, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, I anticipate supply to increase because there's
Hmm.
money in it again.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of the speculation in the industry is like, hey, we're going to go up and to the right with rates because supply. And I'm like, well, I do think there are people on the sidelines just waiting to get back in, and then the
Yeah.
supply will increase. If demand doesn't materialize, I think it won't go quite as crazy as COVID.
Right.
Because then it was like demand just went off the rails.
Yeah.
If that happens, then, if there's a supply issue, you won't just be able to post it and just cover it. And then it's like, oh, did we forget how to do those things? Does the AI know how to do
Exactly.
that?
Yeah.
And I'm actually like a huge proponent of AI in a lot of things. I just don't know, like AI, until it's super intelligence, has to be taught by humans how to do a job. If they're automating the part that would prevent the fraud, that is a little bit like, oh,
Right.
sounds great. What are you going to do if abc.com, which would tell you the carrier vetting, not gen logs, but something else, says it's green, and then the AI just says, yep, we're good, and then
Right.
the load's going? What do you do? A
Right.
human didn't book it.
But even now, even without AI, that's already happening with so many people. Like I can't
I
even
know,
tell
it's
you
just
how many people have the green and they just go. And I'm like, that's green doesn't mean go. It means you still need to talk to these people. I get running X amount of freight per day and you can't talk to everybody, but you should at least have in your system of like every 4 or 5 loads, 10 loads, I call the driver and I do this. And you like having a little bit of that so that the chances are lower. And yeah, just even like just checking to see if they run the lanes doesn't make sense with their history. Like, period.
Yeah.
That should be something that you check
Who
in.
has time for
Those
that?
are, yeah, I know exactly. I mean, honestly, I could preach on how to vet a carrier literally all day long. There's so many things you could do, but at the end of the day, it's like the biggest thing that I can preach right now is like we're kind of past the point of carrier vetting. Carrier vetting is important, obviously, but we're really at the point with driver vetting. Like, know who the driver is. You know, is he a real driver? Like, are you actually getting a real driver's number? It's not a dispatcher that's in Armenia, or is it, you know,
Uzbekistan, yeah.
yeah. Or, and then does that truck belong to that carrier? If you were to have a claim, are you able to file the claim because it actually belongs to them? And then are they where they say they were? Like, those are like three easy, if this matches, you should be fine. Not all the time.
Well,
but
there you go. Just
yeah.
got all the value out of Danielle right there at the end. Those
Yeah.
three things you got to be doing in addition to vetting.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate the time, Danielle.